never falling skies, where the towers drown in sapphire mist. Rain etches sermons on the stone and glass, and time rewinds in magnetic hiss. We watch the North Star flicker above, a reel spinning in God's holy machine. Angels with lights and celestial gloves, framing each breath behind the screen. They spoke in tapes and chromatic tones, scrolls of VHS inside cathedral halls, words in static, hymns and dial tones, faith broadcast through rainfall's calls. Dreams projected on the castle wall, bleeding silver in the ancient night. A script divine in the thunder scroll, where gods direct and ghosts recite. We watch the North Star flicker above, a reel spinning in God's holy machine. Angels with lights and celestial gloves, framing each breath behind the screen. Became a lens of fate. We prayed in fuzz, not candlelight. Each frame a prayer, the reels create in God's cinema of endless night. We watch the North Star flicker above, a wheel spinning in God's holy machine. Angels with lights and celestial gloves, framing each breath behind the stream.
Welcome, and I'm more Fati to Kingdom Reviews on the channel KOK live from the Kingdom of Eternal Reign. I'm your host, King, and today we'll be talking about Guillermo del Toro's Frankenstein. So, I just watched it last night, and I might do a second review once it hits streaming and I can go back and watch it, because oh boy, was this movie filled with symbolism. And of course, it's Guillermo del Toro, so it's got his aesthetic, it's got his gothic Catholicism, gothic fantasy mixed with like a a light steampunk kind of vibe, aesthetic wise. His cinematography is really good. His the set design, the costumes, the lighting is just all really, really solid, as one would expect from someone like Guillermo del Toro. And going into a movie you haven't seen before and already announcing you're going to do a review, when you are just a average film reviewer, that's one thing. You can easily get a few minute long video out of it. When you are in the setting of Channel KOK and other podcasters and live streamers that discuss esoteric, occult, philosophical, spiritual symbolism and analysis as such, is kind of dangerous because you never really know if you're going to have material for a video. And I announced it anyways because this was a part of our dark arc that we're doing, our for Channel KOK, our Dark Myth Arc Autumn. And so I announced that I was doing this review of Del Toro's Frankenstein, and of course, I am a Del Toro fan. And so I was like, I'm going to be doing this review, hoping that there's something to talk about, hoping that there's symbolism. And literally within the first few minutes of the film, it opens up with a ship of men going to the North Pole. And I was like, this is it. I'm going to have something to talk about here because now we're getting into polar symbolism. And I was just so ecstatic. I was like, yes, there's something here to talk about. And of course, we talk about polar symbolism here on the channel. Fan of the channel, Mario Garza, Symbolic Studies. He's all about polar symbolism. Go check him out. So just right off the bat, and of course Del Toro, he's Catholic. He gets into this mysticism, fairy tale stuff as well. He also gets into like this Lovecraftian gothic horror cosmic idea of things as well. And that's very primordial. And there is a lot of polar or primordial symbolism in this film. So that's kind of what we're going to be talking about, as well as Golem, Homunculus, Frankenstein AI aspect of it as well, this artificial life. And really what Del Toro was setting out with doing for this film. Because when you hear him discuss the film, you understand that he has this angle, this lens that he's kind of putting this story that's been told time and time again from countless directors and storytellers. Of course, Mary Shelley, she wrote the novel, but even before that, with the idea of the golem in Kabbalism and the homunculus in alchemical way of thinking. So I'm going to be getting into all of that. I don't know how long this video is going to be because there's quite a hefty toll to talk about here. That's why I said I might, when I rewatch it, I might be forgetting things now, so I might do a follow-up once it hits streaming, because yes, Netflix got the rights to this film. I guess it premiered, if I'm correct. I don't have it in front of me, so I could be incorrect about this, but I believe it premiered earlier this year at TIFF, the film festival. And then I believe Netflix got the rights to it. I don't know if Del Toro has a contract with Netflix, because he's done like Troll Hunters, his Tales from Arcadia series, which is based off of the book he co-wrote. I believe it's a co-written. Maybe he just wrote it. And then he also did his Cabinet of Curiosities, which was basically Del Toro doing a Alfred Hitchcock Hour kind of mini series where he got other directors to kind of tell Del Torian series. and then of course he also did Pinocchio, which we talked about on this channel earlier, a couple years ago when it came out. So go watch that if you not have seen the film. This Pinocchio movie is amazing. We did a discussion on it on this channel in the early days of this channel. I believe it's called Four Black Hairs and the Homunculus Messiah. That was before Kingdom Reviews. That was a panel discussion of a couple of different people talking about Del Toro's Pinocchio. So go check that out. And of course, Symbolic Studies, Mario, we've had multiple discussions with him on the channel. And I believe our first discussion that I had with him on the channel was from film with Lovecraft, over Lovecraft polar symbolism. So, where to begin? In the beginning, God separated the waters of heaven and earth. Let's start all the way from the beginning, right? Like I said, also, before we get going, if you want to hear our Golem watch along, which we did have some technical difficulties, Golem attacked us, the AI Golem, but we got through the majority of it. It was a really fun watch along kind of experiment. Go watch that if you not have seen the 1915 Jewish German film Golem, or Der Golem, or the Monster of Fate. And boy, are we going to talk about fate here. And also, if you are on X, formerly Twitter, you can follow Channel KOK at Channel KOK TV, I believe is our @ and we do X Spaces to talk to you guys. And our last one we did with Eve was a matinee pre-show of our Golem watch along. So go watch that as well. Without any further delay, let's just jump into it. Finally, get into the meat and potatoes of this discussion. And to start off, like I said, when the film opens up, I first noticed that there are some subtitles, because those, a few different languages spoken throughout the film. And like the first line of text in the subtitle, when it opens up on this cold Arctic landscape, and you have these men who's trudging through the waters. Their ship is frozen in ice, trying to get to the North Pole. And there's a line that pops up that I believe it's the captain, could be one of the crew members. I believe it's the captain, though, that mentions the farthermost point. And I took a note of that because I mean, I guess farthermost is, of course, is a word. And you also have furthermost. So I took a note that it was used farthermost instead of furthermost because the Toro in his press circuit promoting the film as it approached its uh, one day, or I think now it's 1 week release, because I'm sure they're going to try to put it through the Academy circuit, the Oscars and all of that. Um, and to do so, I believe that you have to have it in theaters for a week. I talked to a theater worker as I was sitting in the lounge waiting for my theater to open, and he would mention that he was excited for the film, and he was also expecting the reason why they have it for a week is for the festival Academy circuit to be nominated. And I mean, I feel this is the whole award ceremony is really kind of lame. It's just kind of a scam. It's a front. It doesn't really mean much. Um, but if any film this year deserved to be a nominee, the Toro's Frankenstein. And in the press circuit, when he's doing interviews talking about it, the film, he mentions that to him, it is a father-son story. And it really is. And I took note from the very beginning, like I said, the first line of dialogue in the text when you read the subtitle, it says farthermost instead of furthermost, which again is a word, right? But the choice to use that word over furthermost, I just noted it to be serendipitous, asynchronistic at its least, planned at its best. That we have a man trying to tell a father-son story about the masculine side of creation, not the feminine side. There is that feminine side, of course, with placenta and the womb. We enter this world through woman, of course. But the Toro is setting through the setting the lens of the father side of creation, right? And in these interviews, he's discussed how he drew inspiration from him as a husband and father, and a son, right? And what that means for him, and drawing from his own experience. And also, it's worth to note here that Del Toro has really been wanting to make a Frankenstein movie his entire life. It kind of This is very much a magnum opus kind of moment for him. He is This movie's been at least in the production phase for, I believe, like 20 years. He's talked about when he was like 11 years old, I believe, when he was a young boy, picking up Mary Shelley's Frankenstein or the modern Prometheus, and how it affected him from a spiritual level, from growing up Catholic. And there is definitely some Catholic overtones and undertones, more rather, in this film, of course. And he even said this is, I think, on another press tour talk, he said, "I hope you guys like this film from a very Catholic man." And he is he's also referred to himself, I believe, in an interview prior as some kind of mystic or mysticism. So we have like the mysticism side of Catholicism, and the very esoteric and occult side of things and of it, like I said. And he sets it up here as this very masculine side of creation story. As we'll get into it, there's a moment where Frankenstein's creature, who isn't named in the original novel, he's named Adam, which we'll get into. But in this film, he's just named the creature or the monster. And we'll get into a little bit later where there's a moment where the creature pretends to be of the spirit of the force, pretends to be this pain like entity, and it's interesting. There's also the angel of death, a recurring motif in Del Toro's work. The angel of death, he's depicted a few different ways. And so, like I said, when the film opens up, it's this white landscape, which reminded me of the movie Crimson Peak. Also starts off in this cold whiteness, right? So like very like cold primordial, not like this black void kind of primordial aspect. And the text reads the first audio we hear from, I believe it's the captain, maybe a crew member, that talks about the farthermost point. So we had from the beginning this primordial and father kind of masculine kind of identity to the story. And then you realize that their ship is frozen in ice, and this crew, they're trying to make it the voyage to the North Pole, which again I clocked it right away to be polar symbolism, northern symbolism. Of we have this crew of men trying to dredge the way to the North Pole, which in polar symbolism you realize that the North Pole with the firmament, right? Um, or you can also refer to it as the ice wall. So they're trying to make it to the North Pole. And then also in polar symbolism, the North Star is God's eye, God's throne room, it's Stella Maris. It's kind of the gateway to heaven, our way out, one might say. So really, we have this crew of men who is trying to make it to the North Pole to find new discoveries, to make it to, like, they don't say in the film, but we can say that they're trying to make it to the ice wall. They're trying to make it to God. This is a physical but spiritual journey. And this is something that we should note here, that when it comes to masculine side of creation, the masculine side of spirituality, it's very physical. It's very, forging. It's this hard labor. It's not as pristine and fluid as the feminine side of creation is. So we have here these men just drudging through it, trying to carve their ship out of the ice, and they're covered in ice. Their beard has icicles on it. I mean, it's this very harsh landscape. And that's when they discovered this man who is laying on the ice. His sled and sled dogs, it's all broken, and the dogs have like ran away, and he's like missing a leg. He's got a prosthetic leg and it's fallen off, and he's in really bad shape. And they go to try to rescue him, and they bring him aboard their ship that's still, submerged in ice. And we discover that this captain and his crew have tried to rescue and discovered it is in fact Victor Frankenstein, and it's Dr. Frankenstein himself. And he is not wanting to be saved. He's telling the men to put him back on the ice. And we soon find out why. Because here comes the monster, the creature, Frankenstein's monster himself. And he is this just huge beast of a man. He is also covered in ice. He's got different coats on, and his voice is just deep and guttural, boomy. And he's just a primordial man. He's as cold as ice. His skin is just pale white. And he's just cobbled together from different body parts, of course. But he's really strong, and so he's hunting down his father, Victor Frankenstein, and he's going to get to him by any means necessary. So as the crew of the ship tries to defend against this beast, this monster, he's just plowing through them. And this is a very grotesque film. If you can stomach that, I don't think it's the most grotesque film. It's not like someone like Cronenberg or Eggers, who kind of glorify dark and grotesque and violent and gore. This isn't a Saw movie by any means. But there is a harsh violence to some of these scenes when it comes to the creature, and not just his creation, but the destruction that he can bring. And so we see this just creatures plowing through these crew members of this ship. And he's just saying, bring me Victor. Like, give me Victor. And they buy their time because they can't shoot the creature, Frankenstein's monster, because he heals so rapidly. He's got and this is something that we will talk about as we're discussing this film, is he can't die. He's immortal. because he wasn't created by God, so he doesn't have the gift of life, or he doesn't have the gift of death. I mean, he has been giving life by man, and a man who didn't really have a spiritual conscious or morality to him and what he was trying to do. He was just trying to do it. He was just trying to do it, and we'll get into why, because it gets into Victor's backstory in a little bit. But he was just trying to accomplish creating life itself, not understanding what the repercussions, what comes after, right? And so in doing so, this is life that has come into this world not through the way that God intended. So it can't exit the way out of this world that the way that God intended either. So he is immortal by a fault. And so they can't kill him. They shoot him and he just heals and he just keeps on walking. So to buy time, they shoot the ice at his feet, and the monster, the creature, sinks underneath the cold water, underneath the ice, which buys them a little bit of time, enough time to set up the movie, because this whole sequence that I'm describing to you is a prelude. Those texts at the beginning of the screen. And Del Toro did say that this movie is like an autobiography. It is like a journal of Frankenstein. So it's very much in the vein of, like, you look at, like, say, the original Dracula novel, and it is written as the fictitious journal of Dracula, right? And Dracula, Frankenstein. So we're getting into these myths, right? These folklores, and Del Toro tries to do that with this film, and so it opens up with text that says, this is a prelude, and then all of this I'm describing to you now, of this crew of the ship meeting Victor and seeing the monster. It is a prelude to the story. This is actually it starts at the end of the story, and I would be a bit of a hypocrite if I didn't say that I'm not a fan, and I was taught in film school that starting in your third act, really, in doing the whole I bet you wondering how I got here, motif, and then it rewinding back to the beginning of the film is not seen as good writing. When it breaks up the flow. So if you're taking your third act and moving it to the beginning of your story, not only does it break up the flow, but it also tells the audience that, one, you don't have confidence in the story that you're telling to tell it in its original order, and two, that you don't have confidence in them to be interested in the story. So you have to bring the exciting stuff to the front. So it's a kind of an insult to your art and to the audience in a way. It's just lazy writing. However, I will give this caveat, and it's not just because I'm a fan of Del Toro as a director. The way he does it as this prelude and having really is Victor at the and the monster at the end of their journey reflecting on the story is a bit better than having it where it's your third act. So they're in their final act really when this happens, and it's not just moving that third act to the beginning like movies like Emperor's New Groove, for the for the Disney kids that grew up with Disney. That movie does it, and it's bad when that movie does it because it disrupts it. But when you're at when you're the adventurer at the end of your story and you're kind of reflecting and telling your tale at the end of your journey is a bit different. So it's the same but different. And so we can give a bit of a leeway, or I guess you can say a excuse to Del Toro, saying that this prelude works really in its story's favor in a way. I will say I felt like the pacing and some of the editing was a bit off be- because of the structure of the film. We have, well, really the story's three parts. It's the prelude, it's Victor's side of the story, and then it's the monsters or the creature side of the story. And it makes sense why he would want to do that. And I think it mostly works. I think it gives the story a bit of a rocky kind of flow to it at moments, though, because it's not equally kind of divided up. Really, I mean, it kind of splits at the halfway mark, uh, but it's still kind of uh, not as even as fluid as a, a storyteller's story should flow. So that is one thing I will say I felt was a bit off, um, a bit lacking. So to move on to the second part of the story after the prelude, really the main part of the story, that's Victor's uh, origin he's telling. Because, like I said, this whole story is really just a flashback from this point forward. There's a few cutaways back to the present with him telling the captain of this ship his story and who he is and who the creature is. And that's really it. And then there was, of course, the ending back on the ship. Uh, but yeah, so as they wait and they're in the captain's quarters, Victor tells his story to the captain of this crew that's trying to go to the North Pole in their second ice. And the tagline of this movie is only a monster plays God. And that's really that's a good tagline. 'Cause that's the moral of this story, right? And like I said, it's a father-son story. It's a masculine creation kind of story. It's a primordial kind of story. And so Victor tells his origin story. He starts off when he's a little kid, and he is very attached to his mother because his father travels and a lot, and his father is some kind of doctor of sorts, and he's supposed to be like one of the best doctors in Europe, and he's a very physical man. Victor Frankenstein's father is. He's not very spiritual at all. He only really sees the physical side of things, the material world. And Victor says that he preferred when his dad was gone, because when his dad came back to the house, that the entire household, his mother, the maids, even him, had to bend to his dad's will. So he's already, kind of despising the role of the head of the house, of the father figure, of the leader. And he said he likes it when it's just him and his mom in the house, because, and I thought this was a really interesting and weird line. He says that his mother was all his. And so we see here, on saying, okay, we discuss the archetypes of the mature masculine. We talk about the different archetypes of storytelling, the hero journey, Joseph Campbell's kind of stuff. And we do talk about Robert Bly's or not Robert Bly's, Robert Moore and Douglas Gillette's archetypes of the mature masculine. And that's the king, the warrior, magician, and lover. And so find this very interesting when you think about like boy psychology and man psychology, and stepping up into your whole mature masculine, into the divine masculine, if you will, and trying to, master all four archetypes and become a whole individual. Both Robert Moore, Douglas Gillette, and Robert Bly discuss the initiation, the rites of passage from the boy's world to the man's world. And that's part of the father's duty. There was also times where a third member, like some kind of, mentor that kind of initiates young men, is also involved. And part of these initiation rituals, these rites of passage rituals, really symbolizes the death of the boy and the birth of the man. And they see it as really two separate people. And when someone's in the boy's world, he's really in his mother's world. And that death is that final spiritual separation of the boy from his mother, really. And then he gets thrown into the man's world, the adult world, his father's world, which is more, harsh. And it's more physical, primordial, kind of spiritual kind of side of things, and which is different from the more fluid, primordial aspect of the feminine, right? And mothers should want that for their son. And a lot of times when the rites of passage ritual is over, the son is reintroduced to his mother as a new person. Maybe he has a new name or a title or something, but they're reintroduced, and their relationship is different. And so we see here that Victor is not wanting to leave his mother's world. He's not really wanting to be a man. And he is despising his father for his brutality. And yeah, the way Del Toro depicts Victor's father, he is harsh. But there isn't really one thing we can point to and say that this is why his father was really evil, right? He's just a materialistic kind of man, a realist, I guess you can say. And so we have this set up, and then you see that in the beginning of this flashback how his father did argue with his mother, with Victor Frankenstein's mother. His parents, fought, and his mother was a religious Catholic, and his father really wasn't. And when he was a young boy, he would pray to, in front of this angel statue and everything, and because he was in his mother's world. And his father was trying, when he was around at the house, trying to teach Victor how he thought a man should be, to be more physical, more materialistic, and to be a good doctor. He was training him to be a doctor. Around this time, the father would normally teach his profession to his son. And so he's teaching him the trade, and he's trying to teach him that there is no spiritual side to the human experience, so he doesn't have any guilt. He doesn't have any attachment to these people he'll be working on. He says a line, and I'm paraphrasing because I don't remember exactly, but he questions Victor if the muscle and different parts of the body has an emotional kind of side to it. And he says no, and he goes, that's correct. There is no spiritual side to these parts of the body. It's all just physical matter, really. Which I would obviously disagree with. There is a spiritual side, but this is just how his father is depicted, right? And Victor Frankenstein's mother, as part of the flashback, is pregnant with Victor's young brother, and one day his mother gives birth and she ends up dying, giving birth to Victor's brother. And of course, his father delivered his brother because his father, the doctor, and Victor Frankenstein blames his father for the death of his mother, saying, "Well, you're supposed to be the best doctor in Europe. Like, why, like, why couldn't you save her?" And he in Victor's mind, his father could have saved his mother. His father, since he looks at the body as just material matter, he didn't see the necessity of saving his wife, the mother of his child. So Victor grows kind of vitriol towards his own father even more now, and swears that he will now do the opposite of what his father that he thinks his father doing. He sees his father as really death, really not able to create life, right? And so Victor sets out his mission to be the kind of doctor that creates life, thus sets his desire and goals of creating Frankenstein's monster. And so he spends the rest of his adolescence growing up with this mission, and he becomes very stubborn, and he basically in a way becomes Victor Frankenstein becomes his own father, because he meticulously looks at life as this like machine materialistic thing to build and create. And so in wanting to not become his father, his obsession made him become very much so like his own father. And so this is the start of his obsession of creating Frankenstein's monster or the creature. And when that happens, we see that Victor's father starts to favor, I forget his name, but Victor's younger brother, the young Frankenstein, if you will. And so it's kind of this that I'm sure that the branch would say something like this. It's kind of like where you will have I believe it's like two lambs, and you praise one, you treat one well, and you treat the other one really poorly. You give all your hatred to one, or you love and aspiration to one, and hate and vitriol and everything, disgust to the other. So it's his father kind of does that to Victor and Victor's brother. So it thus, kind of creates this kind of adversarial role between the brothers. Victor's brother grows up to be the this businessman that has the respect of his father up until his father dies. And once his father dies, because they're still fairly young, one of them gets shipped to one family side of the family, and the other one gets shipped to the other side of the family. And so Victor's brother kind of gets the praise and everything of the family and becomes this like stand-up man, where Victor becomes the crazy one of the family, the obsessive one of the family. And it skips ahead to Victor now as an adult man, and he's able to temporarily animate like a small torso, one arm with a head that he's coupled together temporarily for a short little period, and he's needing more funds for his research. So he's trying to drum up, investors. And everyone's like, this isn't holy. This is ungodly what you're trying to do. And and Victor Frankenstein is a baron, is referred to as a baron now. And I would like to note here that Victor is played by Oscar Isaac, who played Paul's father in Denis Villeneuve's Dune. And he's also played Spider-Man 2099 and, like a bunch of characters. But just saying it here because, of course, in Dune, you have the Baron, right? And so I just thought that was kind of funny and just wanted to note it here as well. And then you have going back to the story where he's trying to find investors, and everyone's like, this is unholy what you're trying to do. One of the people in the audience is the brother to Victor's soon-to-be wife, who is played by Maya Goth. And she's also the love interest for the creature later on in the story. Excuse me. And, Maya Goth with her like really thin, I don't know if they're shaved or if they're just naturally thin eyebrows. It's so alien looking, alien looking, and it's so modern. A thing for modern elite actresses and whatnot and models to do. I mean, Jenna Ortega just shaved her eyebrows, or bleaching them. I think is the other thing that they do. Instead of shaving them, they just bleach them to look invisible. It's so alien that it kind of works for Del Toro's kind of aesthetic, but it's also still so modern that it kind of pulls me out of the story a little bit. So I will note that here as well. And so Victor's brother is getting married to Maya Goth's character, and she has a brother who has a lot of money, and he comes to, on behalf of his sister and Victor's brother, of course, to go find Victor and bring him to their home to be introduced and to get ready for the wedding. and he sets on the in the audience to Victor's demonstration when he's trying to raise money, and he's the only one that is fascinated with the proposition that Victor is saying that he can create life, which we find out later is because he's has leprosy or some kind of disease. I forget exactly what disease it is, but it's like one of those leprosies, like leprosy where he's like slowly, dwindling away. And that's why he's hoping that Victor is able to create life so he can give him essentially a new body, which is what transhumanists try to do, which there's a whole part of, the alchemical homunculus and the Golem and Kabbalism and Frankenstein in modern days and AI in the present, is really it's just these elite transhumanist kind of ideologies of what they're wanting to do. And so because they don't want to die and they don't have any connection or any understanding of God, right? In the divine. And so he offers to fund Victor's research and give him whatever he needs. He gives him a lab, and he is an arms dealer, so he works in wars. He's easy to find dead bodies and everything, and so they team up, and eventually they discover that there is another layer of the body, and it's the electrical body, or the aether auric electrical kind of side of the body. So through science, they discovered this spiritual side in a way. So we get more into this metaphysical aspect of the story, and they realize that they need to charge it, and to charge it, they have to send electricity to right here in the chest area, but they have to send it through the back. And they're very technical about it. They're like, okay, this is where this organ is. This is where their nervous system intersects with it, and this is how every layer of the body, every part of the human body kind of works together and whatnot. And so if we just send electricity here, it'll power this electrical body, and then it'll power up every other layer of the body and all of this. And so there is this metaphysical aspect to it, incorporated. And of course, the storm comes, and just like Doc Brown, just like Einstein, just like Zeus, just like Thor, Victor has to climb up on top of the roof and stick this antenna that's gonna attract the lightning from the storm so he gets enough power to shock his creation of life. And that's when Victor Frankenstein and his investor, Maya Goth's character, or Maya Goth's brother's character, is, and like his whole sickness, illness is revealed, and he's like, if you do this, Victor, you have to create a body for me because all this and this, because I don't want to die, and Victor actually refuses. He just wants to create his monster. He just wants to prove that he can create life. He doesn't want to help this guy. He doesn't want to do all this other stuff. He doesn't even know if it's possible. He just wants to create life. And so he refuses, and as they're trying to get everything set up to capture the lightning from the storm, they get into this fight, and Maya Goth's brother's character falls into like this pit that's in their lab, and that goes to the house that the lab is at. And Victor tries to save him, but because his body is like deteriorating through his illness, his like arm just like falls off, and it's kind of grotesque. And then he just falls to his death, and Victor goes ahead with the experiment, creates his creature, and something I kind of skipped over, I'll reference here, is throughout Victor's Frankenstein's life, he keeps on having this dream of the angel of death. And the angel of death is dressed up in the same red dress and everything that his mother wore. So he's kind of haunted by this vision. So flash forward to Victor capturing lightning and shocking the monster, the creature with it. And at first he thinks it doesn't work, so he just goes to bed and he's like, I failed. And then when he wakes up, instead of waking up from this vision, this dream of this angel of death, now he wakes up and his creation is standing before him. And to note here that it's not the same actor that Del Toro has worked with in the past that played Ape Sapien in the Hellboy movies, and the creature from the Black Lagoon in his Shape of Water movie. It is a different actor. It is actually a younger actor who played Elvis in the Priscilla movie, Priscilla movie, based off of Elvis and Me, that was directed by Sophia Coppola, Francis Ford Coppola's daughter. And this is the actor that said that he didn't know who Elvis was until he watched Lilo and Stitch as a kid, and then he go on to play Elvis, of course. And I forget his name, but it's this actor that is playing Frankenstein's monster, or the creature, as it's credited as in Del Toro's Frankenstein. And so Victor wakes up and he's faced with this luminous, cold, pale body. The design of Frankenstein's monster, I guess, it is supposed to be more realistic to like if you cobble together like dead bodies that you was trying to preserve and whatnot, like a cold, lifeless body. With its different skin tones and everything, and being so pale, and the way that they really focus in on the tendons and everything, the different layers of the body, it kind of reminds me of like Alex Gray, the artist who does like all the Toll album covers. So this movie is almost like if Del Toro made a steampunk version of a Toll music video, almost. And so now Frankenstein has to kind of figure out what to do with his creation, because he even says that like he didn't plan on what to do after. And so we kind of get like this, like after you're at the end of your story, what's your purpose? Once the roadrunner, or once the coyote catches the roadrunner, he doesn't have a purpose anymore. And so like the reality of what he's done kind of starts to set out over him a little bit. Also, something that I skipped over with right before the death of Maya Goth's brother's character, when he's explaining that he is ill, he is taking medicine that it's liquid mercury, and he has this line that says, you know how the saying goes, a night with Venus and a lifetime with Mercury. So I'll have to ponder with that a little bit more when we're talking about like planetary and zodiacal symbolism. I wanted to note that. I thought that was also an interesting line that Del Toro had put in there. But anyways, to go back to the point of the story where we're at, Victor locks up his creation in the basement. He starts showing it thing. At first, it's kind of cold to him. He's like, "Oh, I could introduce this thing to water, and I could tell it my name." And so the creature starts be able to speak, and his first word is Victor. And that at first, that's all he can say is Victor, Victor, Victor. And it's like an infant, a newborn baby. It's like this new life, but it's massive, and it's strong, and it's healing. Like the muscle is like growing, so it's becoming more and more strong. And after trying to teach it for a while, and Victor's way of teaching it is parallel to how his father taught him to be a doctor. There's this moment earlier in the film where Victor's dad is trying to teach Victor as a young boy, medicine and everything. And when he gets a question wrong, he takes like one of those, I don't know, are they called whips? I can't think of the word uh, off the top of my head, but the things that we see like old school teachers like hit students with, Um, he takes one of those, or maybe it's some kind of apparatus on a cane or something, some kind of object, and he goes to hit Victor with it since he got the questions wrong, and um, he Victor gives his dad his hands to hit, and his dad puts his hands away. He goes, "Now that you're becoming a man, your hands are your livelihood, but your face is vanity." And he hits him across the face, and his cheek starts to bleed. And so we see that ruthlessness that his dad gave Victor is being reflected and repeated, with Victor doing it to his own creation, his the Frankenstein monster. And he starts to get angry and more violent with it. One, because he's scared of what he's created. It's suddenly that he has done something unholy, but he is also, he's scared of it because it's so tall and so strong. But as well, uh, there's this other aspect that, because it's still in an infantile state and all it can say is Victor, 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 he's starting to get angry with it, and it's almost like he thinks that it's taunting him with his own name. Um, and also, Victor has like this little doll of like a pregnant woman where you can like remove the different pieces that he was using in his lessons as a kid, and he still holds on to it as an adult, it seems like. And that's when he's trying to teach this creature how to, just to, I guess, his version of being alive, Victor's version of what it is to be a man, and repeating the cycle that his father had created. And that's when Victor's brother and his wife Mia Goth comes to visit, and they're worried because they haven't heard from Mia Goth's brother, because of course he's been dead all this time. And whoa, can you guys hear me? One moment. One moment for sure. Whoa. Whoa there, guys. I am back. Thanks for your patience. That was crazy. Technical difficulties. Got to love them. Okay. Um, we'll try to uh start wrapping this up here soon. I'll try to get through the rest of the movie though. So essentially, at this point of the film, like I said, Victor's brother and Maya Goth's character goes back to the house to try to check up on Victor and Maya Goth's brother, who is dead and they don't know it yet. And excuse me, that's when they realize Victor has kind of fully snapped. He's gone for full mad scientist, full mad doctor. He's lost the plot. He's psycho. And he's being very manic. He's like in this manic state. And he's like, I did it. I did it. You gotta see my work. But he's also kind of scared. So he's like got like this surge of emotions. And that's when Maya Goth's character meets the creature for the first time. And of course, because Maya Goth's character is supposed to be the female figure that the creature gets infatuated with, falls in love with. It also is a homage to the Bride of Frankenstein. She has her wedding dress actually has like little wraps around the arms that are indicative of the wrap you see in the universal version of the Bride of Frankenstein, right? But she doesn't actually turn into the Bride of Frankenstein in this movie. So she sees him. It's something that I kind of skipped over a little bit that I'll get into right now, actually, is Victor kind of gets lustful, gets a crush, gets infatuated himself with Maya Goth's character, with his brother's wife, and which is again not a mature masculine thing to do. You know, as far as I do that, that's not good, right? And so you see that Victor has secluded himself. The only woman that he's ever felt connected to is his mother. He's felt jealous of his brother because of the way his brother treated his brother versus the way his father treated him. And now his brother's getting married, having this amazing life. He has this woman, and Victor kind of falls in lust, infatuation of her, and she's Catholic, and she kind of tests Victor in a way where she's a very much more a memento mori kind of Catholic. She likes insects and like looking at insects and everything. So they have that kind of scientific mind that they can discuss things with. However, she's coming from a spiritual perspective and he's not, of course. And she's the one that utters the tagline, only a monster plays God. Victor is what she says, which is the tagline. of the film. And then she's like the feminine does, like Victor's mother did to him. She has empathy towards the creature and has fear, hostility towards Victor. So now he's kind of is in a weird way playing out the same role that his father played, and then his Maya Goth's character as his mother, and then his creation, his son, would be, of course, the creature, Frankenstein's monster. And then we have, I mean, and Maya Goth's character isn't she's it's not like she's innocent with all of this. She does entertain Victor on some levels, even though she's married to his brother. So she's not really has much of a moral high ground. She's got more of a moral high ground than Victor, but not much. So she really is kind of that untamed feminine in a way. And you do get a sense that she, probably does love Victor's brother. But she's not innocent because she does entertain Victor's fascination, it seems like. And something else I'll note here that I haven't yet, and that it's milk. Through the entire film, Victor and other characters are just drinking milk. Just they're pouring milk, they're drinking milk. There's so much milk drinking and milk in this film, and I think it's interesting because, like, milk and honey, milk is seen as like like in a way elixir of life, because, like, of course, women and breast milk, it's nourishment for a child. But there's also, of course, like raw milk, and milk is kind of seen as a symbol for like white boy summer and Argatha, Hyperborean, and northern kind of memetics, right, as well. So I just thought that was interesting. So there's a lot of goo. I mean, because you got the tendons, you got the blood, you got the nervous system, you got the muscles, everything, and then you have them drinking milk, and there's so much of it. I kind of laughed every time I just saw. I was like, they're drinking milk, and then it's also in the dialogue. So I just wanted to note that here. So at this point, Victor tells the truth about. Well, he tells that he tells his brother and Mia Goth's character that Mia Goth's brother is dead, and that part's the truth. But he changes the story and says that the monster, the creature, killed him in a fit of rage, instead of the fact that he fell to his death because they got into a fight before the creature was even alive. So you have that, and then he gets them to leave, but Mia Goth's character has like this feeling in her stomach, so she gets them to turn the buggy around and go back to the house where Victor is going to burn the house down with the monster, with the creature in the basement. And he has second thoughts, which I thought was a weird choice. I know he was a manic and erratic, but the fact that he had second thoughts and when he goes back into the burning house and it explodes, that's how he lost his leg, which is kind of weird. And at that point, they think that the creature's dead. Victor goes, and I believe he's living with his brother and Mia Goth back in town now, back in the city at this point. And that's when it cuts back to the present of Victor telling the story to the captain of the cruise ship that's going to the North Pole. And that's when the creature comes back, and he can, in the present day, he can speak full sentences, and he walks in and he sees that Victor is telling his story, and that's when he utters the line, "My creator told his story. Now it's time for me to tell mine." And then from this point on, it's the second half of the story, which is the creature side of the story. And it picks up right where Victor's half leaves off, where the creature is telling the story to the captain of the cruise ship and Victor. And he says that he didn't die in the explosion. He is immortal. He's like Wolverine, right? He like instantly heals, and the muscles grow back, and he'll be like unconscious for a period of time, but he always returns. And which also kind of reminds me of Del Toro's Pinocchio, because that was kind of the deal with the Pinocchio character in Del Toro's version, that he would go to the underworld but then always return. And so the creature says he wandered about for a while, and then he came across this small family who lived in the middle of the woods on their own little farm, and he hid in their like shed barn area, and he would like go underneath their house and like basically lived with them amongst shadows and observed them, became fascinated with them. He didn't want to scare them. He didn't know how they would react. So what he ends up doing is anything that they need to get done, he'll do for them at night. And so the family starts to think of Frankenstein's creature as the spirit of the forest. And they have like a spirit of forest faces on both sides of the door, like a statuette, gargoyle kind of thing, bolting to the both sides of the entrance of the door. Excuse me. And they start thanking this spirit of the forest, and the statue does kind of look like a painting. And of course, Toro did paint the labyrinth, and they end up giving the the spirit of the forest, or Frankenstein's monster, the creature, offerings and food and clothes and everything, and leaving it out for him as a thank you for everything that he's been doing. And he learns to talk a little bit because the little girl of the family is learning to speak and read. And so he watching her, he learns a little bit. And then all but the old man of the family leaves. All but the grandpa, who's like blind, leaves for the winter and goes somewhere else. And the grandpa of the family, the old blind man, stays. And of course, that's when the creature kind of reveals himself. And the old blind man, since he can't see the creature, he thinks he's just like maybe a lost soldier in the war, because there's a war going on right now within the story of the film. And he puts together like, oh, you are the creature of the forest. You was living in the shadows, right? And the old man puts everything together. Besides the fact that this is Frankenstein's monster, and he convinces him to stay and live with him as his companion. And he has a bunch of books, so he says, "You can read to me." And so Frankenstein's monster starts reading all these books to this old blind man, and one of them is Paradise Lost. The other that they focus on is the Bible. And Frankenstein's monster even says, the creature even says, I read this book about the birth of man, the creation of man, and the first man, Adam, and the first woman, Eve. Which, of course, I'm pretty sure that Adam is the name of Frankenstein's monster in Mary Shelley's novel, or maybe a different version. But I know there was at least one version, if not Mary Shelley's novel, Modern Prometheus, that the monster is named Adam. And this is when the creature he has to protect the old man in the family against like wolves that are coming and attacking their sheep and wanting to attack them. And he learns that, like, it's not the fact that certain things are like evil, but there is this natural thing of wanting to, like, the wolves need to eat, so the wolves are attacking the sheep. Well, the people also need the sheep, and so, like, it's not the fact that they're evil and it's not the fact that the wolves hate the people, the wolves hate the sheep. It's just the fact that it's nature, and nature is brutal, right? At times. And he learns this, he reads the Bible, he reads Paradise Lost, he's doing all this. And then he starts questioning about himself and his own creator and his own origin, because he had no memories since before he was born. He just has like these, or I shouldn't say born, I should say created. But he has like these like fragmented visions of things. So maybe muscle memory, like phantom limb, and like this like metaphysical idea that like memory isn't stored in the brain, it's stored in like the muscles of the auric field of our body. And so he wants to kind of figure out who he is, and so he goes back to the down lab, and he finds all of Victor's files and papers and schematics and diagrams of creating, his creature, which is him. And so he realizes that he's not even of God, that he is a creation of man. And so he starts to realize that he is kind of, in fact, a monster. And so he goes back to the old man's house that he's been staying with. And of course, in his absence, the wolves broke in and killed the old man. So now he doesn't have a reason to stay there or anything. So he leaves, and he does have some like a postcard or a letter or something that gives the creature a clue of where Frankenstein is when he's living with Victor's living with his brother and Mia Goth's character, and they're getting ready for their actual wedding ceremony. And that's when the creature gets there, and he bursts into Victor's room, and Victor knows he's there. He's like, "If you're here in the shadows, step out." And then he just like looms in. It's just, and Frankenstein's monster, the creature, tells Victor, now that he can speak, he says, he's like, "What is my purpose? What am I?" He goes, I can't die. I have this like gift of life, but I don't have the gift of death. It's a burden in all this." And he's like, "I need you to create me a companion. I need a companion." So this is where we get to the bride of Frankenstein, right? And Victor, when he's terrified and scared of what he's created and regrets it, he goes, "No, I'm not going to create another one." For what? So you can procreate, create more abominations? And he's just like, "I'm not going to do this." And that's when the Mia Goth's character comes into the room, and she admits that she has feelings for this monster ever since she first laid eyes on him, and she's happy that it's still alive, and she is like embracing him, wants to be with him, and all this. And she's like, I've always felt out of reach with the people around me and everything around me, but with you, I feel in touch and attached and everything. And so she's embracing the Frankenstein's monster in her wedding gown with the wraps that are a homage to Frankenstein's the Bride of Frankenstein. And Victor grabs his gun and says, "Move." He tells my Goth's character to move so he can shoot it, and he goes ahead and shoots at his creation, shoots at the creature, and Maya Goth character doesn't move. She's still embracing the creature, and so she gets shot, and so she dies. And as she's bleeding out, the creature takes her and walks off with her and lays her to rest in a cave. And when he does so, of course, the wedding party and Victor's brother is like, "Oh my god, this is the monster is here!" So they're shooting at it, and the creature just kills all of them except for Victor. And Victor follows them to the cave, and that's when the creature says, well, if you can't give me a companion, if you won't give me a companion, then give me death. I will play your monster for the rest of your days. And you will have to try to kill me, is what the creature tells Victor Frankenstein. And then we see this kind of like short montage of them kind of battling and going across the lands, which leads them to where they was fighting in the Arctic, where the ship of the men going to the North Pole, trying to make it to the North Pole, finds Victor, because the reason why everything was like burnt, and he was laying on the ice, and his sled dogs had ran away, and his sled was partially on fire and everything, was because his big thing that he thought he could kill the creature with, doesn't really make sense, but he tries to light dynamite. And so the creature goes, okay, this was your big plan, dynamite this time? Okay. And he just holds it. And it just stands there. And it explodes. And he's like, I can feel my bones reset and my skin tissue regrow back and all of this. Then this is so, like I said, this is when it gets to the present day, and now the creature, Frankenstein's monster, is done telling his side of the story, and they have this final exchange as Victor is dying in the captain's quarters of this ship that's frozen in the Arctic, as they're telling those stories. And Victor forgives the creature forgives Victor. They don't call each other monster and creator anymore. They call themselves father and son. And Victor asks the creature to say his name one more time, back when it was the only thing he could say, and what that name meant to the world to him. Which is something that Maya Goth's character explains. The reason why he keeps on saying Victor that was the only thing he can say, is because that's the only word he needed. That word meant everything to him. Like, Victor was his creator, that was his father, that was his God, So he's like, say my name one more time. Like he used to say when that was the only word he could say, when that word meant everything to you, that meant the world to you. And he says, okay, Father. And he says Victor. And as the final words are coming out of Victor's mouth, you start to see Victor's breath. You see the coldness of his breath. So you literally see Victor's final breath. So that was interesting, because if you watch our Golem video, our Golem watch-along, we talk about in the Kabbalistic ritual, like the breath, when the rabbi is asking the spirit for the magical word and it comes out with his breath. So you have the breath, you have, like the north wind blows, this idea of like God's breath, the ma, I believe is what they call it in Japanese. Really, it's like real energy. It's like chi, and even they even call the spiritual body they discover, the electrical body they discover. They say it's the Eastern idea of chi. They even say it in the film. So it is real. So you have that here, and I thought it was interesting, and then the captain, understanding the story that he was just told, tells his men to stand down, and he lets the creature go after Victor dies. And the creature uses his strength to break the ship out of the ice so they can continue on the journey. And at the beginning of the movie, the crew was begging the captain to turn around and go home. And they didn't want to make it to the North Pole. And now, after hearing Victor's story and Frankenstein's monster, the creature story, the captain has changed his mind from wanting just to go straight ahead and do it no matter what the cost is, to now realizing that maybe we're not meant to know everything on this side of the veil, and that everything will be known in time once we cross over to heaven and all that. And he gives his men sympathy and tells them that they're going to turn course and go home. And then I believe it's a sunrise, not a sunset. The final shot is the creature walking into the horizon. And that is a movie. And that there was a movie. I really gave it broad brushstrokes, but that's really it. And like I said, it's a very primordial story. Let me check my notes really quick to see if there was anything that I left out of it. Yeah, I think that's it. I think we hit all my notes, guys. Thanks for watching this review. I will say the last thing I'll say about it. Actually, I'll throw this here at the end. That Del Toro's mother died while he was making this film. So we do have another another moment where it's like the be careful what you write and everything, because if you write about grief, darker things, I mean, hardships and ups and downs are always happening. That's the way of life. But there was this spiritual idea, that this esoteric idea that like when if you write something, it may come true. The directors have gone through it. Francis Ford Coppola has talked about it happening to him. So maybe that's part of this whole what possibly happened with Del Toro. Who knows? And yeah, the photography, of course, is amazing. Color palette is amazing. Everything pretty well done. And I really enjoyed it. I was when I was leaving the theater, I was really excited. I mean, I was excited through the entire thing. Uh, I, w- I was excited to go see it. It's been a while since I've seen a new movie that I was like excited for actually in the theater, and then when it started, and one of the most Del Toro movies, like this really is possibly his magnum opus. I know he said that he's only has a few movies left in him, and then he was gonna focus on like stop motion or whatever, other mediums. And so really is like his magnum opus, uh, and it is a father son story. It is a story about primordial creation, man, the masculine side of creation, and it is a story of not the the monkey paw esque warning of to not play God with all this stuff, right? Um, which we are approaching with AI and with like Oracle AI and Peter Thiel, with Larry Ellison with Oracle, Peter Thiel with Palantir, and every other Middle Eastern and Silicon Valley um, tech bro that is trudging ahead. And they even say that this is just like Oppenheimer's creating the atomic bomb and the I am become death, destroy our world's moments for us, and we're playing a very dangerous game. And you know, in Latin, homunculus just means little man. It's where we get Frankenstein. It's where we get Leprechaun. It's where we get Golem. Um, that even you can say things like conscience is also another aspect of it, and um, of course AI transhumanism getting through to the more modern aspect of it. And so it's Frankenstein is definitely a story that it's going to be retold time and time again. And I think this is probably the prominent one for, I would say, our age, our era. And when I was leaving the theater, I was like, I enjoyed it. I got this movie was very symbolic, very out there. Um, I don't know how other people are going to enjoy it. Del Toro is one of those people that kind of bridges a little bit of art house cinema with um, contemporary Hollywood blockbuster, because he's a good storyteller. He understands symbolism. He understands the exoteric and the esoteric of both sides of things. It seems like, and the comments I heard from the fellow people as I was leaving the theater, it seems like it'll do well enough, judging by the. I had a packed. It was like a sold out showing I went to, and I think it'll do well enough because Del Toro is like the average moviegoer knows who he is. Cinephiles of course, knows who he is. Um, but and I think because how cynical people are of course, as well. People not wanting to think more deeply, think about the esoteric, only think about the exoteric, and enjoying things that are more slop. Not saying this is the most highbrow thing. I'm not saying this is like. I'm also like a kind of against like high cinema, right? Like highbrow cinema, like academic cinema. Like I'm not all about that. But I think there should still be like this esoteric symbolic knowledge when it comes to the stories we tell and the archetypes that make up our existence that God has given us. And so I think people will enjoy it, but I think it might be a bit too far out, I guess you could say, for a more wider appeal. So I think it's going to be, you're either going to love it because you're a Del Toro fan and you like horror movies. And that's the thing, horror movies, like horror fans, they have a love-hate relationship with Del Toro because he's not the traditional or the modern traditional way of horror. Like he's not like, again, he's not like a Cronenberg. He's not like a Wes Craven. He's more of a gothic fantasy kind of element where tragic romances and things like that, where it is dark, but it's not like horror to scare you. And so I think it also it's so niche that there is an audience for it, but when you look at it from a wide scale, I think there's going to be a bit of a divisiveness, like most of Del Toro's films. So that's really it. That's what I really wanted to say. And also the cinematographer for this previously worked on a Del Toro featurette for Pan's Labyrinth. He directed the featurette on The Power of Myth, which is Del Toro talking about the power of myth. Not to be confused by the Joseph Campbell novel, The Power of Myth. So, I really enjoyed this film. There's like I said, there's definitely parts that were weak for me, but overall, I think it's a pretty decent film. I think, I applaud Del Toro for having this, be his magnum opus and spend so much time wanting to tell the story. It is a very interesting and very well told story for what it is. And that's it for this one. Like I said, if you want to go check out previous Pinocchio video that we have on Del Toro's Pinocchio, Lovecraftian symbolism with Mario Garza, that's on the channel. Follow us on X on channel KOK TV for spaces, like our matinee for our Golem video, or you can watch our Watch Your Wing Golem video that we was live with it just a few days ago. So watch that as well. Remember, like, subscribe, leave a comment, and of course, we also have an Instagram called I believe it's just King of Cops TV is at on our Instagram. So X, Instagram, YouTube. We have back catalogs on Odyssey and Spotify, but I haven't updated those in a long time. Stay tuned for more Dark Myth Arc Autumn on channel KOK, live, broadcasted live from the Kingdom of Eternal Reign. And remember, to all your Aurelians out there, Amor Fati. See you guys next time. I think the next one is going to be possibly a King of Brant show special. So we're going to have King of Brant shows coming, more Kingdom reviews, more X Spaces, more specials, God's a Playwright episodes, maybe it's a deep drive-in returning. Our main series, though, going forward, I'm going to try to be doing archetypes, talking about all the different archetypes, and our companion series for Kingdom Reviews, Annie Mason, where I review animated and anime films. So, I'm more Fati. See you guys next time. This is King from the Kingdom of Eternal Reign, and you are been tuned in to channel KOK. More Fati, everyone. See you guys next time.
The rain never ends here. Stone-soaked streets whisper myth. From lyrics in the word stuff. Fog climbs towers of forgotten stone. A kingdom veiled where time's unknown. VHS scrolls with static breath tell stories that I left, and they say the North Star plays the scene, a reel of God's own silver dream. The angels mic, the thunder sound, grip the clouds and move around. They say it's the kingdom lost in rain, where the heavens splice our joy and pain. Every droplet writes a line in the film that loops through time. The crown is rust, but eyes still gleam, lit by projectors' ancient beam. We pray the static of fear. Fast forward hope, rewind the year. Castle halls with TV light, the angel scripts in black and white. The choir hums in mono sound, a sacred loop where gods are found. This is the kingdom lost in rain, where the heavens place our joy and pain. Every droplet writes a line in the film that loops through time. Silent God, sing return. This is